couple of days ago, one of my younger students, 11 to be precise, saxophone student, asked me a great question. He said, do I have to know a bunch of music theory in order to be able to improvise a solo? I thought about that. It's a great question. And the answer is, but first let's talk about music theory. The answer's coming up. Just bear with me. What exactly is music theory? Kind of a misnomer. Music theory, right? Well, it's really not a theory. Music theory is a universally, and that word universally is important, universally accepted set of rules. Sort of a guidebook that we all accept when we set out to create this language that we call music, all right? And everybody follows along the same playbook. And that's why music tends to basically work out, at least in the West. I don't know about Eastern music, but Western music all tends to kind of work out the same. Be it rock and roll, jazz, country, funk, R&B, all that. Each of those genres has within itself a set of guidelines and rules that this is how this is going to work out. But the basic rules are, we'll start with the modes, right? Sharps, flats, majors, minors, tempos, time signatures, intervals, scales, chord tones, non-chord tones, dynamics, all of that sort of business. It constitutes music theory. And you can spend a long time studying music theory, all right? So the question, in order to improvise, how much of that mountain of knowledge do you really need to have in order to craft a solo? I think we ought to consult the masters before we try to answer that question. A couple of people that, made their mark in popular culture. One is Stan Getz. Stan Getz, possibly the greatest saxophone player that America has ever produced. Stan Getz famously has said in interviews that he knew music theory, but he didn't really pay much attention to that. He just played what he wanted to play, all right? Played what he wanted to play. And I'm paraphrasing here. Now, I have to give you a disclaimer. Do I know Stan? Did I know Stan Getz? No. Have I ever met Stan Getz? No, not at all. But I've read a lot of interviews conducted that are in print with Stan Getz as a subject. And I've watched endless hours of Stan Getz improvising. And I do enjoy master classes. One of the ones that I sat through fairly recently was conducted by Gary Burton. Gary Burton is a vibraphone player, vibraphonist. How do you say that word? Get back to me on that. Anyway, he played vibes, and he was with Stan Getz for maybe 3.5 years in one of his combos. And at the end of the master class, students were beginning to ask questions about, what was it like to work with Stan Getz? And he said, Stan basically knew the chord tones. He said he knew the chord tones, like the 1, the 3, the 5. Say a C major, C, E, and G, right? He said, that's kind of about it. And that in order to craft a solo, what Mr. Getz would do, he would listen to everybody else in the band. He would listen to the other soloists, the melody, whatever, and he would compose something on the fly that fit into what was being said by the other members of the band. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah. As David Sanborn said, the right note in the right place, that's a worthy study that could take most of your life. And I agree with that. And there are other musicians in other genres who followed suit, did the same. Muddy Waters, for example. Muddy Waters, a master guitar player from Mississippi, ended up in Chicago, and I'm amazed at what he could do and what he could play. Just amazing the way that he could put notes and figure out the right note to put in the right place at the right time to make blues that just grab your heart, right? Now the Beatles. Who? Yeah, the Beatles, right? The reason I'm talking about Stan Getz and the Beatles is they're both height of mind. They're both in social media right now. The Beatles documentary, Get Back, is all over Facebook. There's 9 hours worth of footage of them on the Disney Channel. And I've watched almost all 9 hours of that. And then Stan Getz, likewise on social media, There was a fundraiser recently to put together some coin to do a documentary of Stan Getz. And that's in progress at this moment too. So you may have heard of both just on social media. If you're a very young musician, those names might not be as familiar to you. So look them up. The Beatles, your parents know about the Beatles, right? And I talk about the Beatles because once again, you get songwriters here who produced a book of music that once again has just embedded itself in the hearts, in the DNA and the minds of American pop culture. Masterworks, and they famously have said, we don't know how to read or write music, couldn't do it, but they did know how to write amazing songs. And they worked these songs out in the studios together or at home, and they'd bring those ideas into the recording studio and they'd craft a song out of it on the spot. They'd teach each other songs. Nothing is on paper. There's no paper, right? Except lyrics, right? But as far as the music goes, the music was created and passed along in the old way without anything being written on a piece of paper. Just two examples, and I point them out because, once again, they've been in the spotlight fairly recently, but they are examples of people who have done extraordinarily well, who really didn't know that big pile of theory. In fact, I don't think either of them, the Beatles or Stan Getz, could teach a junior college course, a community college course, that's what we call them now, community college course in music theory, right? So how much theory, given my overview of this, how much theory do you need to know in order to be able to craft a solo on your instrument? And my answer to you is not as much as perhaps you've been led to believe, not as much as you may think or worry about late at night when you're thinking, how will I ever get ahead as a soloist if I don't learn all of this theory, right? Yeah, so let's put that aside right now. You don't really need to know a ton of theory in order. There's stuff you do need to know, but you don't need to know as much as you have, maybe thought you, or maybe you've been told in the past you need to know in order to make this work. What do you need to know? You need to know your instrument, all right? What do you play, saxophone? Probably so. That's why you're here, right? You need to know your saxophone inside and out. You need to know what happens when you press the keys. You need to know what happens when you blow a certain way or you don't blow a certain way. You need to know the harmonics, the multi. You need to know every single thing you can possibly know about your saxophone, okay? And I'm not kidding around. You need to be able to actually play the things that you feel in your mind, that you hear in your mind, that you feel in your heart. That good, right? What happens when I press the B key? Well, what happens when I press the A key? What happens when I press all of that is so vastly important. So your instrument, and if you look at that documentary with the Beatles, you will see that those guys knew their instruments like the backs of their hands. What a terrible cliche. I know, it's overused. I know, so sue me. But they did not look at their instrument. They're playing along and they're talking to each other. They're working out words to songs and they're not looking at their instruments, right? Even when they're soloing, these guys are master craftsmen. They know their instruments. Okay, they look at the keyboards, the piano, but they come up with stuff on piano that's pretty crazy. And they're also multi-instruments. They can play almost all of them, can play everything. You can see Ringo playing the piano. You see Paul playing the drums. You can see John and George playing the bass. I mean, they all switch around and they're all very convincing. Getz, did he know his horn? Oh, heck yeah. And you can see that. I think Stan Getz came out of the bebop tradition, if I'm not mistaken, and basically simplified his music over the year to make it a little more palatable to the public, all right? Not saying that bebop is not, but, bossa nova surely was accepted a little better by the buying public. So by playing as much as you humanly can is how you get there. And this is one thing, and I'm going to just belabor the point here, but most of my students and most of the people I know who play an instrument, like the saxophone, don't play it nearly enough, all right? Now, I know that time is not always on your side, right? If you're younger, you have things to do. Video games, for example. That dated me. They don't call them video games. Computer games, all right? If you're older, you got a job. You got a family. You got things to do, so it's not always convenient. But grab the horn, play it as often, as much as humanly possible every day. And there's a point, in There's a point in the beginning of your career as a saxophonist when you really need to put the time in. All right. And I mean like maybe an hour and a half and then another half hour and then 15 minutes before you go to bed. Break it up throughout the day like that. What should you play though? Now there you go. What is it that you should be playing? What parts of this mountain of theory should you be absorbing on your saxophone? Right away, right off the bat, your major and your minor scales. Major scales and your minor scales. Learn them by ear. Don't learn them off the page. Start with a C major scale. Get a teacher? Yeah, it's a great idea. Get a teacher. I don't care what your teacher plays. Piano, saxophone, whatever it is. Guitar. Teacher's a great idea to help you to learn your scales and to play them and to have a practice buddy to play them with, okay? Majors and minors, I don't care about any blues scale or any pentatonic scale. No, not in the beginning, no. You need to your majors and your minors. There's 12 each, total of 24 of them, total of 24 keys, all right? You need any help with that? Sure. Jamie Ebersold has maybe only written about 300 or 400 or 500 books. Here's a great one. I suppose this is backwards. Let me get it out of the glare of the light. Getting It Together. This is filled with scales and scale exercises that'll help you immeasurably. And I'll put links to this stuff in the comments, okay? The technique of the saxophone. Book 1 is just loaded with scales. Again, scales and scale exercises. Now, I just told you to learn your scales by ear, didn't I? And you're going, Dave, you're showing me books. What? Right? Are you losing it? Well, yeah, of course. But you learn them by ear, and then you use these books to find or source out different patterns or different combinations of those scales so that you don't get stuck in that rut of just being able to, ascend and descend, ascend and descend. Universal Method, the big blue book right here, is a pretty awesome book as well. This has got a ton of material in it that would help you get where you want to go. All right, what I just dropped? Something there. Anyway, so there's 3 books that'll help you out, okay? Next, close the distance between you and your horn. Close the distance between you and your horn. Now, what the heck do I mean by that? By playing stuff from your memory. Little simple things that you may know, like hot cross buns. Everybody knows that, right? Play it from memory, not off a page. Then graduate to Happy Birthday. How many times have you sung Happy Birthday in your life? 3,000 probably. So play Happy Birthday. Play it on your horn, all right? From memory, not off the page. Stumble or, yeah, it's going to be hard. Also, you can say hum 4 simple notes. La, 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 and try to find those on your horn, all right? It's a lot harder than it sounds in the beginning, and you're going to stumble around with it, but it's going to close the gap between you and your horn. This thing out here, this tool out here, needs to become part of you, part of your inner soul, your working soul, so that when you think of a solo on the bandstand, you think of something you want to play, you can find that immediately on the horn, okay? Mary Had a Little Lamb, Amazing Grace. Songs that are in our popular lexicon that we know, that we just know, that we don't remember a time when we did not know them. Those are the kinds of things that you can play on your horn. Then, if you want extra points from Davy Boy here, take them a half step up. Once you've got, say, Amazing Grace down, take it a half step up. That's a different key. Then a half step above that. That's another key. Take it a half step above that, right? Finally, learn songs. Songs? Yeah, learn songs. What songs, Dave? Any songs, I don't care. If Sonny Rollins taught us anything, it was to learn a million songs. I mean, how many songs did he claim? Like maybe 10,000 or something. He learned songs. I'm an old cowhand. I mean, he learned amazing, just this huge book of songs. And that is, where you really learn so much, you absorb so much theory, so much music theory through the learning of these songs, like Pink Panther, Polka Dots and Moonbeams, Sea Jam Blues, Purple Haze, Jimi Hendrix, right? I mean, I don't care what songs these are, what melodies that you learn. Once again, Sonny Rollins taught us, and Sonny has got to be the reigning king of saxophone, and he's thank God, still with us. Amazing guy, an amazing player, and he taught us the value of putting a lot of things in here, a lot of melodies in the intellectual hopper, okay? So did Stan Getz, and so did the Beatles. The Beatles, also known as one of the world's best cover bands, okay? Learning to play songs, and I mean memorizing the melody, all right, the part that you can sing, the copyrightable part. Just memorize that. Put that in your head. That's a huge step forward into, once again, learning theory, because, those who wrote those songs used music theory, whether they knew it or not. The Beatles learned music theory by playing cover tunes of all the bands all the cover tunes that they played as a club band when they were younger. They were the Quarrymen before they were the Beatles, and they were not famous before they were famous, right? So chip away at this stuff every day. I mean, every day. Chip away at this stuff every day. Your major scales, your minor scales, your patterns, learning songs, learning to play stuff that you hear, playing stuff that you remember. Do this every day, and in 6 months, six months, I guarantee you will not be the same saxophone player that you are today. That's it for today. I kind of went on for a long time. Thanks for bearing with me, and thank you to Johnny Onion Mannion for helping me figure out how to turn the comments on. So comments below, if you have any, I'd love to hear from you. You can also reach out to me via email, davegoodmail@gmail.com. No, don't do that one. What am I talking about? davegoodsax@gmail.com. That's much better. davegoodsax@gmail.com will get right to me. The other one is the spam mailbox, and you know how it is. You start to forget things, as you get older. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, until next time, play your horn as much as you humanly can. I mean, really play that horn as much as you possibly can. Try these ideas out. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. Any ideas for future mini master classes? If you like this one, hit subscribe and maybe give me a thumbs up. Yeah, thumbs up. All right. Have a great one. Enjoy, have fun, and play that horn.